Hi, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Miguel, aka Mighty Migs, and thank you for tuning in for this episode of Passion for Acting podcast. And today's episode's guest is none other than Lucy Cooney. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Pretty good. But before we go further ahead, I'd like to mention that the sponsor of this episode is actually Sydney Actors Association. And if you're an actor who's looking to sharpen their craft in any way, shape, or form, this could be the right place for you because it's got a good atmosphere, good coaching, and a good bunch of people with very little to no ego. But without further ado, just like to welcome aboard Lucy. Please give us an introduction about yourself.
Thank you, Miguel. So my name is Lucy. I'm 25 years old. I'm an Irish actor, singer, dancer. I've been living in Australia for just over a year now. I have a degree in musical theatre and acting for screen. And yeah, I've been working as a professional actor for the last few years now, um, apart from a recent break in the last year.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah. It was good to have you
Mhm.
back, even though I haven't known you for that long yet. But, welcome back to the acting
Yeah,
world because you've gotten the acting bug, you've been bitten by it, and you don't want it to get
hmm
cured. Am I correct?
exactly. Never cured.
Oh. Oh, wow, wow, wow. Yeah, because speaking of which, I think you're the second person who's got that education in musical theatre because, like that episode that you
Yeah,
watched with Monique, I think she's also
yeah,
got a degree in that as well, and she's got a lot of experience in that, and I think that's her preference when it comes to acting, and each to their own. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, how would you relate that? Before we go to the next questions, how would you actually just compare that to film acting and normal theatre acting, stage acting?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize it at the time when I was studying, but there is like quite a difference. Obviously, first and foremost, theater acting is musical theater is singing, dancing, and acting. Um, and what I realized working in both is acting for camera is a lot different than acting for stage. Acting for stage is quite, big and bold and broad, and you kind of put it all out there, and you're kind of working off a live audience. That's what I get. Like that's my favorite part of it. It's the thrill of like interacting with the audience, getting the energy from them. Whereas acting for screen and camera is a lot different. It's a lot more obviously up close, and I think it's a little bit more internalized, I would say. Like it's internal acting, but you have to kind of show it all in here, if that makes sense. Whereas theater
Yeah.
is you're kind of using your whole body and things like that. Yeah, there's a lot of differences.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, because like if it's
Yeah,
just a face shot just like this, the projection here is all that matters. Nothing underneath here is like, I'm making all these gestures. That's all that
yeah,
matters. You know what I mean? Because it, like what you said, it has to
exactly,
come from internal, like, internal
exactly.
reactions to the context, because it's not about, because it's more like about like the
hmm
objective of that. How do you react to that?
Exactly.
Like, if there's an explosion, how do you if there's an explosion, you react that way, or if there's
Yeah,
a sad scene where you feel like a loved one died or your partner died, and you're like, oh, how do you react to that? So it's just like us actors can
hmm
only understand that, how to do that. Yeah, but it is what it is. But what
yeah.
inspired you to become an actor here, Lucy?
Um, so my family is quite heavily involved in the arts. My grandmother and my mother are both theater actors. Um, and then my father was involved in music. He was in a band when he was a lot younger. There was always a lot of creativity going on in my house. And not that it was ever pushed upon me or forced upon me at all, but I definitely, as you said, caught the bug. And I think once you develop a passion for it, it's very hard to come out of it. Um, so yeah, like because my family was heavily involved with it, I just naturally uh, kind of began inserting myself into the music world. I trained classically as a singer first and foremost before I ever went into acting. And then I think when you're a singer, acting kind of slowly makes its way in because when you're singing, you're performing. And yeah, I realized that I enjoyed that. So I kind of went from there.
Oh, I see, I see. So you got involved with
Mhm.
the musical arts first, and that's how you got into
Yeah,
musical theater. Am I correct?
yeah,
Oh, okay,
correct.
okay.
Yeah,
So
they kind
everyone's
of go
got a
hand in
different
hand,
story.
I think.
That's just unique.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. Because
how
I
did
think
you get
I can
into?
see you
Sorry, I was going to say,
acting.
how did you get into acting?
Um,
I'm curious about it.
okay, it was the great Bruce Lee because of him, I started martial arts training when I was actually 12 years old. And
Oh,
because
okay.
after just not only doing martial arts, but after seeing that, I could see myself on the big screen and being in these action
Hmm.
movies and all that stuff. So he's the guy that inspired me. So yeah, so I guess everyone's got a different, unique story, and just like yours, like
Hmm.
you were born into a family full of theater performers, and for me,
Hmm.
it's the other way around. The rest of my family is more into music. I'm the only one into dramatic arts. So I don't think I can sing. Maybe I can. And if I can't sing, that means I'm adopted. And anyway, I'm gonna ask my parents that. But if I can sing, it runs into genetics. But we're gonna find out maybe one
Hmm.
day. But right now, all about the film and theater, mostly film anyway. So yeah.
Okay.
But yeah. So do you prefer theater over film? Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%. I have developed a much stronger passion for TV and film in the last year or so, just because I've been doing more of that. And I'm like definitely loving how different it is and different ways you kind of draw on different characters for TV and film rather than theater. I think it's like my acting coach always said to me, for TV and film, like you feel it, and for theater you show it because theater has to be big and bold, but for acting for screen it's you feel it inside and show it. um but yeah, I prefer theater because, as I mentioned before, um for me personally, there's literally no better feeling than like the thrill of a live audience, and taking the energy from the room and using that and putting it back into the performance, because I think, like, if the audience is enjoying it, I'm enjoying it even more. Whereas, and it's kind of, you put it all out there in one big performance. With acting for TV and film, it is great, but there's a couple of takes. It's kind of a longer process, and it could take 5 or 6 takes to get that right shot, get the right scene. With theater, it's just one go, you go for it and give it your all, kind of thing. And I like that feeling.
Yeah, I always say this when it comes to this topic. Like, theater is actually a sprint and film is a
Hmm.
marathon. So, theater, you
Yeah,
just go all out. But in film, you have to pace yourself, because you need
exactly.
some mental endurance. Yeah. So,
Hmm.
that's only speaking from experience for me, because like what I mean endurance in terms of take after take, and once you finish a scene, you have to go to the other side of town, or maybe even the other side of the country, or maybe even the world, just to film another scene. And that's what I mean by a
Exactly.
marathon, because it's just like it can take a toll. And if you don't,
Hmm.
if and that's why a lot of actors out there who are successful in film, after a little while, they disappear because they don't know, they couldn't handle the pressure anymore. You know what I mean? Because
Hmm.
it's sacrifice. But I guess it's pros and
Absolutely.
cons. But what I do like about theater, like what you said, is just about like feeding off the crowd. You know what I mean? And but sometimes, like, how the crowd reacts, it's beyond your control as the performer. Because I
Yeah.
remember one time we were performing in a Powerhouse Museum, right? And it was a tough crowd. So I remember, like,
Yeah.
it was a comedy. It's called the parking space. And it was we were just being funny, and the only person I could hear laughing in the crowd was our acting coach, who helped us perform into that. And everyone else, it's like, oh shit, tough crowd. I didn't say that verbally, but in my head, it's like, we need to pick up
Yeah.
our A game here, but and blah blah blah. But we're assuming we weren't actually like, making them laugh. They weren't enjoying it, but we still did the
Yeah.
best we could, because like what
Yeah.
our acting coach back then, Daniel Sasson, actually said. You have to be in the moment. Don't worry about how they could react. It's beyond your control. Just perform like nobody's watching and do the best you can. And we ended up doing it. And after the show, people was like, "Oh my gosh, that was so funny." I'm like, how come you didn't laugh then? I mean, and but
Yeah.
anyway, that's besides the point. We don't actually get to control how the way they react in the first place, because
Yeah,
it's all about just making sure that you perform the best you can. And I reckon I can
exactly. I
imagine you
think
doing
like,
stuff like in the Willoughby. Keep talking. Keep talking.
sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, like, you actually, I can imagine you being performing in there in the Willoughby Theatre Company in Chatswood, So we can talk about that after we finish recording this episode. But you know what? You could apply for that, or even Sydney. There's a lot of local musical stuff that you can do good at, in my opinion, get some experience, So
Mm,
with all
hmm.
that being said, we can talk about that after we finish recording this. I have some ideas
Hmm.
for you, yeah, but it is what it is.
Yeah,
But anyway, yeah. So you just answered my next question. You already had a preference between film and theater acting, and you already said
yeah.
why. But another thing about the theater is that if it's a big or like stadium, like it can be
Hmm.
more challenging because you have to make sure that the biggest, if it's like a 500 seater, 1,000 seater, a thousand
Yeah.
seater, not seater. Um, there's a challenge. Like you got to find a way to make sure that the person from the people from the front row to the back row have to feel your performance. But if it's like in the new
Hmm.
theater in Newtown, I remember watching my agent perform in Chimerica back in Youth Theatre
Hmm.
in Newtown, where one of the guys who I used to train. He's actually a Pom as well. So we watched it together in Youth Theatre. There was like a 200 seater, or maybe not even 150 seater. But that was more intimate than
Hmm.
watching it like live in the Opera House or whatnot, because I've performed in the Opera House and a handful of operas before, but it's a different crowd altogether. But for some reason,
Yeah.
I felt more intimate watching it in a smaller local theater than compared to like a 1,000 seater or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think like as an actor, I nearly prefer performing for bigger crowds because, whether there's 2,000 or 10,000 out there, you're not really like, I think a great actor, no matter what room they're in, should be able to command the room and kind of not worry about who's there and impressing people. But I think that's why a lot of actors get so nervous for like auditions or like more intimate settings, because it feels a little bit more personal. Like when you can actually see faces and see people reacting in live time to your performance, I think that's a lot more challenging. Whereas when you're in performing for an audience of thousands and thousands, you don't care because you can't see anybody and you're not paying attention, you're in the moment. But yeah, in an audition space or a more intimate theater, I've always found that a little bit more intense because yeah, you're kind of connecting with them at a lot more personal level, I feel.
I feel that as well. Yeah, yeah. So, what do you lean
Mm.
more towards in terms of? Do you lean more towards dramatic theatre or comedy theatre, or a bit of both?
Um, a bit of both. My typecast and what I kind of normally fall into and have been cast in the last couple of years has always been comedy. Um, Especially theater wise, like I've always like landed the. It's never like the. I'm never like the strong leading lady. It's more like the like comic sidekick or something like that. Um, which I prefer. I have much more fun working as a comedy actor than a serious drama actor. However, in the last year or so, when I was living and working in London, um, I kind of leaned more into the dramatic Shakespearean serious theatre side, and I really enjoyed that as well because it's you just delving into a whole different kind of world and feeling and challenge, I suppose. Yeah.
Oh, I see, I see. Yeah, yeah. Because like drama has its pros and cons, just like comedy has its pros and cons. So like, let me start off with the
Hmm.
comedy pros. It's because because it's easy to laugh. For
Yeah.
me anyway, like it's easy to laugh and do a comedy scene rather than just be in the moment and be sad or in a dramatic scene. Because even if you
Yeah.
make a mistake in a live theater, comedy theater, you can laugh it off when you have to, right? And it's just gonna
Exactly.
it's gonna come across as just like it's a part of the script. So that's the
Yeah.
good thing about it. And I can't really think of any cons at this moment about comedy theater. But when it comes to the drama side of things, you just have to be literally in the moment, or just find a way just to lead up to it, because I'm
Hmm.
speaking from experience here, because it's just it's similar in film. Like, you just, before you say ready, okay, set, and action, you just have to be in the moment first, before you
Yeah.
start getting into that thing. But when it comes to, like, that kind of thing in theater, you just have to prepare yourself being in the moment straight away without any takes in between. But
Yeah.
because with comedy, I think, comedy can be, I don't know, because it can be more memorable sometimes. Like, it's
Hmm.
like watching stand-up comedy. I'm not big on it, but the times I watch stand-up comedy and all that stuff, like, you end up just walking out of the room just laughing your head off, or just like reminisce whatever you want, and what you end up watching it with a friend or your boyfriend or whatever you call it. Um, it's just like, oh, remember when he said this or she said this, and they said that. You can reminisce with that, and that's the
Yeah.
good thing about that. Because for some reason, comedy comedy stuff is actually more quotable and memorable than quotable
Hmm.
in that context. So just like
Yeah.
when you and I talk about 50 First Dates, how many times?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, because I can't really yeah, I can't really remember any time right now where I'm just quoting dramatic movies. It's just like, oh, I remember when this
I
was
was going to
sad, blah
say,
blah
yeah,
blah.
yeah, you're
Yeah,
always
yeah,
quoting comedy. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Because it just brightens up the whole thing as well. Like, you're probably too young for this, but did you grow up watching Simpsons as well?
I did. I did. Yeah.
Oh, you did. You don't.
Yeah, I still
If we can
do.
see,
I still watch it every
uh,
day.
if, are you talking about the first 11 seasons? You're talking about as well, the original
Like
ones.
the OG Simpsons. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, because after, like, 11, season 10 or 11, I just stopped watching it because it wasn't the same directors or writers
No.
anymore, because it just lost its touch and originality. But you know what? One of the guys who I train, I'm pretty sure you've seen me train him. Like, he's a lawyer, he's a tall guy, he's a barrister, right? Like,
Hmm.
almost pretty
Okay.
much every single session we quoted in between sets. I remember when Homer said this, or remember when this happened in The Simpsons. But I think the next time I train, we're going to be very similar in that context. But yeah, so it's just how many times have we quoted? Because comedy stuff are actually more quotable than drama stuff, like what I said.
Hmm.
And for you,
Yeah.
um, yeah, but I reckon, like, because right now you may have not got the leading lady role yet, maybe just because you're a little bit younger yet. But as you get older, that could potentially change. And when you actually get to play those leading lady roles, like, just whether it's the vulnerable role or the strong, independent
Hmm.
woman kind of role, you'll understand
Hmm.
why it suits you better when you get older. I'm not saying it doesn't suit you now, but as time goes by, you'll find out it'll suit you more in the long run. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
No, I totally agree because I think some of my favorite actors and actresses now did um become a lot more popular or famous in their, later 30s or 40s. Like some of my favorite actors didn't kind of come onto the scene until later on. Because they kind of, that's when you come into yourself more. I think, in your 20s, you're still, especially when you're a young actor, you're still doing a lot of different roles, finding your typecast, finding your niche. Um, and I mean, I'm very much happy to play that like comedic role because that's where I feel comfortable. And I think obviously it's always good to push yourself as an actor, but I do think there's also a strength in playing to your typecast, as we've discussed as well. Like it's great to, push boundaries and push past the realms of what you believe is possible for yourself. But I do think there's a strength in playing into your typecast as well, because that's what people see you as, and that's where you're going to be quite strong as well. I don't know if you agree.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because, like, the owner of this office, like, Nick, I train him at the gym, right? And the funny thing is
Mhm.
that, because when I tell him about, like, oh, I got an audition again to play the crooked cop, I got an audition again to play this cop or that soldier, he's shaking his head off, mate. You're so typecasted. I said, hey, I'm getting auditions because of it. I'm getting roles because of it.
Exactly.
Because nothing wrong with my typecast. Because, like I told you before, like, a lot of Asian actors who are living here in Australia, even in Sydney in particular. The funny thing is, they're always asking me, how do you get to play these roles all the time? I said, well, look, I mean, because I work out, and apparently look the part. And if you're not happy about like being typecasted as a chef or the cab driver, the taxi driver, or some geeky accountant, then change the way you look and make the
Yeah.
passion projects that you want to show. Because, like, these are the things you cannot control because this is the world we live in. Don't play the victim. Just do whatever is in your control. So with your
Exactly. Make it
typecast being
happen.
that, being that funny lady, so there's nothing wrong with that because how many funny
Nothing
ladies
else.
do I know? There's kind of Miss Congeniality, Sandra Bullock. What else is there? Some of Rebel Wilson's things are pretty funny as well. Yeah, you can be one of those handful of ladies in the near future who could actually play the funny lady. Yeah, because like remember, it's not a gender thing, but it's just like people know more of the funny guys more than the funny girls. Like for example, Jack Black, Russell Peters, and all that stuff. But there are funny women out there, but it's just for some reason it's just not as common. But you can be one of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That could
Mm-hmm.
be a typecast. You can be drawn into comedy drama. You can play Sally Field's character one day when you get older, like in Mrs. Doubtfire, or you can
Mm-hmm.
play that's another one. Drew Barrymore, she's funny in 51st Dates and in The Wedding Singer as well. So even in Charlie's
Mm-hmm.
Angels, in Charlie's Angels, she was the funniest one out of Lucy Liu and Cameron Diaz, in my opinion, because she was the
Yeah.
cheeky one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? From
Yeah.
what I can
Exactly.
remember. So yeah. So keep doing what you're
Yeah. I
doing.
mean, yeah. Like it's great. It's great to be able to play the, leading, sexy, tall, blonde one. But there is something to be said for, bringing a bit of warmth and like laughter, especially at a time now in the world where everything is a little bit, you know, dark and there's a lot happening. It's like it's good to laugh, you know?
Of course, yeah. Because like
Yeah.
you and I talk about often, it's not any ill
Mm.
will when we say anything politically incorrect. But I'm not going to get into that
No,
topic too
no.
much because
Yeah.
I'm I'm here just to entertain. You know what I mean? So like more than anything, I just when I'm acting and when you're acting, you and I both as individuals and actors want to entertain, and that's our thing.
Hmm.
We want to tell the story that we're telling. It's not to offend
Hmm.
anybody or anything like that because
Hmm.
um, it's fictional. If they don't like
Yeah.
it, they don't have to watch it. Plain and simple.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? But each to
Exactly.
their
Yeah.
own. Exactly. But anyway,
Exactly.
so
Change the channel.
exactly. So yeah, this is comedy, and that's why comedy. Look, there's a line you shouldn't cross, and that's up to you to
Yeah.
discern that. But at the same time, you can just yeah, you can make it funny in the way you want. You know what I mean? If somebody gets offended
Hmm.
by it, that's up to them. That's their business.
Hmm.
But yeah, so the next question here, Lucy, is what has been your favorite character you've played in your acting career so far, and why?
Um, yeah, so I suppose my favorite character so far, theater wise, I kind of have two and they're on the same level but for different reasons. When I was in London, a good friend and playwright of mine wrote a play called Weird Sisters, kind of like a modern day adaptation of a Shakespearean drama. But so it was like a story of how women like deal day to day with just feminism in general, finances, power, love, sex, men, money, like all those things. And it was just like, yeah, kind of like a modern day all night sleepover and of how girls talk to each other and how they deal with life day to day now. And I played a role called Lily. So it was just, I liked it because the role, even though I like going outside my comfort role, the role felt so similar to myself in a lot of ways and so relatable. There was a lot of monologues involved about how it's difficult to be a woman and kind of navigate life at the moment without, you want to be, strong and powerful and independent, but then you don't want to offend anyone by, going too far on that side. And anyway, I really enjoyed that role because it just felt very relatable and like very much like myself at the moment. And then like on the total opposite end of that, my other favorite role was just after that. It was kind of like a live action theater role that I did. Are you familiar with Alice in Wonderland?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I it was like a live action um drama of that, but I was playing like the Queen's card guard. So like I was actually dressed as a card, like the the I think it was the Queen or the Queen of Hearts or something. So like actually physically dressed as a card, and like obviously a lot of people would find that embarrassing, but I just had so much fun doing it. Like interacting with all the people, and it was more so for kids, and I just think there's so much fun involved with kids theater as well. So I just really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's a good thing about the kid stuff, right? Because I've done one myself, Aladdin's
Mhm.
Fractured Fairy Tales. In the first act, I played Alibaba, so an Asian
Uh-huh.
Alibaba. So, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
I played in the second act, I played Cinderella's Prince Charming. So it's just like, oh, an
yeah.
Asian boy who's playing Prince Charming, yeah, with a posh London accent,
Why not?
Good evening,
Yeah.
darling. How are you? But anyway, so it's just every time I went on a stage, don't mean to brag. Every time I went on stage, like, oh, it's Prince Charming. I'm like this with a wig on, and all of a sudden,
Hmm.
it's usually the ladies. The ladies are like, that's Prince Charming.
Yeah,
But anyway, it was just fun because it's light. Yeah, most of it's just light,
exactly.
because obviously with you
And you get
playing
to
that,
be charming.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And that's right. Because, your intention is to laugh and to entertain people. And I bet you, it wasn't just like the kids who was getting entertained by your character or your performance or the people around you, but it's also the adults, right? Because you have to have some adult humor into there. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the fun of it. You put the adult humor in, and it's perfectly innocent on the ears of the children, but the adults get it, and it's funny, and you play with that and have fun with that. And that's what I love about comedy. Like it really is for everybody. And you can play to anybody's kind of humor if you know how to read the room.
Yeah, yeah, or even chapsticks, because if I could name a few chapsticks
Hmm.
that are films, like for example, Ace Ventura with Nature Calls, the second one, that's probably my favorite chapstick movie. I'm not big on comedy, and another one is
Yeah.
Zoolander or Dodgeball.
Hmm.
You watch those movies
Hmm.
because you just want to have a good laugh. I watch those movies.
Yeah.
I probably watched them each like maybe 50 times, 100 times, but most of the time I'm still laughing my head off because it's
Yeah.
that's what I want. Like for example, I have a long day at the gym. And normally, when I'm eating my cheat meal after my Monday, Wednesday nights, I'm watching something light because it's just like
Yeah.
I've forgotten. Not that I have a stressful life, but it's just like what, I'm dead tired, not dead tired, but mentally fatigued because training is just personal training is just like being on stage, in my opinion. I'll talk to
Yeah.
you more about that. But yeah, so it's just like you just want to have a laugh. And going back to that
Yeah.
adult kind of humor, I remember growing up watching Simpsons. You know, my brothers and I will religiously watch it. Like we were playing Super Nintendo back in the day, probably too young to remember that, or playing a PlayStation 1. This was back in the late 90s and early 2000s, and or
Hmm.
even mid 90s as well, early 90s. And you know what? Whatever we were playing or just watching, 5 minutes until 6 p.m. because Simpsons coming in. And my, no, my brothers and I never had that argument. It's like, oh, okay, cool, turn it off. And it's Simpsons, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes there were times when my parents would watch it with us and they'll laugh at jokes that, what was so funny about that? And then my parents would laugh
Yeah.
their heads off, or including my dad. And we didn't get it. I'm like, okay. But then at the same time, Simpsons was never meant to be for kids, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it, majority of it, because it had so much adult and sexual references that, oh,
Hmm.
okay, no wonder why my parents were laughing their head off about this line and that line.
Yeah.
But it's what it is. But you being that theatrical comedy actor, you want to make people laugh, yeah? So
Hmm.
obviously with that heart thing, that suit, was it warm underneath, or did you perform that back in Ireland or in London?
And the comedy role, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that was when I was working in London, both of those roles. Yeah. And they were like one after the other. So it was like a total switch up from like serious like real life, everyday moral drama to like dressing up as a card, you know. It's just, and that's what I love about it. Like, you know, that you don't have to, it doesn't, even if you have a typecast, you don't have to be stuck in like that one tunnel vision role or like that one area where people think you fit in. Like you can really do whatever you want, and that's the beauty of it. You can apply for a role, and if you get it, great, and if you don't, well, that's fine. Maybe they'll consider you for another role, and that's how I've gotten a lot of my roles, is auditioning for things that I potentially probably wasn't right for, and then them remembering me and considering me for a different role later on. And I'm sure it's probably happened for you as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Numerous
Yeah,
times. Yeah, yeah. Because like
yeah,
times I've auditioned for action roles, and it's like, oh man, this could be my ticket to big time. Playing for like auditioning for lead roles or even supporting roles. I'm talking about like big stuff, right? Like
yeah.
because the good thing about what happened in the lockdowns is that Holly, majority of Hollywood's here in Sydney right now, and
Hmm.
they're doing it here or in filming in the Gold Coast, but they're doing a lot of the castings here, majority of the castings here,
Hmm.
and the extras are more like the locals there in Gold Coast. I mean, they have some talent that they scout there as well, but they're more common here.
Hmm.
But that's
Yeah.
the good thing about it. And I remember like the amount of times I've actually auditioned for like lead roles for like TV pilots or even like some ideal action movie or even a few Marvel films. I'm thinking, oh man, God, please let this be my time. It's not my time yet, because I thought I did a good job, but that's just my beyond my control. The only thing I'm in control of is just my performance, and that's it.
Hmm.
Once I've submitted it, like if you watch the very first episode of this channel, uh, the guy who I interviewed was my mentor. He's my agent. And one thing I learned
Hmm.
from him: once you've submitted the audition, once you've done the audition, life goes on. If you're meant to get it, you'll hear
Yeah.
from me, plain and simple. And that's why, like once yesterday, I submitted 3 auditions, and it all happened on Friday. Like and then after I trained you, or before and after I trained you, my agent just said, "Hey, casting brief here and there, blah blah blah. Would you submit?" And I said yes to all 3 of them. And one of my housemates,
Hmm.
it took me almost 3 hours to do the whole thing. But you know what? It was a bit frustrating at times, but we got it done. But now I only thought about it now just to think of it, because once you've submitted the audition, just got to keep moving forward, yeah, with your life, because otherwise it's going to kill you. Oh,
Exactly.
did I get the role? Can I get the role? And you're torturing yourself when you do that. I mean, learn from my mistakes.
Hmm.
If you haven't gone through that, um, I don't think you're going to go through that, because you seem like a mature girl. But the thing is, if you go put yourself through that, don't put yourself through that, because only you're
Hmm.
putting yourself through that. You know what I mean? Because once you've done the audition, like I said, move on. Life goes on.
Yeah,
Okay, but
absolutely.
it
No,
is
I
what it
agree. I
is.
think
But
like that's why it's good to have.
you've been
Oh, sorry.
discouraged before, right? Yeah, keep talking, keep talking.
Um, yeah,
What I
yeah.
was saying
Like
is that
I
you've been
definitely,
discouraged before, right? Yeah, like
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, for sure.
keep
Like as
talking.
in, I think 99.9% of actors on this planet will have been disappointed at some stage, but it's it's not disappointment that, like rejection is a huge, huge part of this job. I mean, it's a huge part of life in general, no matter what career path you're going down anyway. But I mean, they always say actors get 10 10 no's and to every one yes. It's like you could audition for 5 things in one weekend and only hear back from one. And I think like I nearly see it like that's part of the thrill. It's nearly like the lucky dip of being in the acting world. You put yourself out there so much, and whatever is for you truly will come back to you. Um, and like I always just see it as, if I do an audition and I think it goes really well, but I don't get it, I just see that as, well, it wasn't for me. And like because they know what they're looking for. And the thing is, I think one of my acting teachers always told me, like, don't ever get discouraged if you don't get a role, because it doesn't mean that your performance was bad or that you didn't do a good audition. It just means you weren't what they were looking for that role. And I suppose that's how I see it, as in it's just another, like every opportunity or every audition is another opportunity to get more experience, to learn more, to meet new people, to connect. And yeah, I just see them as stepping stones more so than like rejections, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, true, true. Yeah, because like it's a numbers game
Mhm.
at the end of the day. Because this is part of the
Absolutely.
grind, and yeah, non-actors won't understand where we're coming from, because
Mhm.
that's another thing as well. Like they expect you to, once they find out you're an actor, they expect you to go from A to Z straight away, and that's not the
Mhm.
case. Just like anything good,
Mhm.
progress takes time, and the process
Yeah.
takes time as well. And that's the thing, Ed, because like if you're continuously getting auditions, um, that's a good indicator that you're in demand within the casting directors, because if the casting directors are giving you auditions here and there, maybe every week,
Yeah.
occasionally, it doesn't matter, they're on your side, and that's the reason why because they're them and your agent are the ones who are actually your bridges to success. Because number one, if the casting directors didn't think you'd be right for the role, they wouldn't actually ask you to come in for an audition, because
Mhm.
they think, oh, okay, we'll get Lucy on board. Hopefully, this product or this production will think that she's right for the role. You know what I mean? And remember, like in most cases, they're the ones doing the shortlisting as well, because
Yeah.
but it's the client who actually makes the ultimate decision. It's not their project; they're
Mhm.
just helping with the casting process, obviously. Yeah. So
Mhm.
they may shortlist you, but then it's ultimately up to the product or the production, that the client is
Mhm.
actually going to make the decision whether you or I will get the role. But it's beyond our control. But life goes on, like what I said. So we just keep doing what you're doing, because the passion will never die until the day you no longer existing. You know what I mean? Just keep at it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So but
Yeah.
anyway, cool. So the next question here. So what do you see any differences in styles of acting in education, talking about between Ireland and Australia? So fill us in, because I'm dying to know about this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I suppose the main difference is Ireland is so small, and Australia is so big and vast and unbelievably full of opportunity. I think like one of the main reasons I left Ireland is because uh, there's just it's such a small pool, and you'll kind of notice in Irish TV and film, you'll see a lot of the same recurring actors, same names. When they find actors in Ireland that they like, they tend to stick with them. It's very, very hard in Ireland to get into to the TV and film pool, I think. Um, and like for example, when I was going to university to college, um, my course was the very first and only musical theatre degree in Ireland. Whereas, if you look at Sydney, there's probably 30 degrees alone in Sydney for, TV and film and musical theatre and all that stuff. But yeah, when I was going to university, it was the only one. There was an acting degree as well, but for, singing, dance, and acting, there was literally one in the whole country. So obviously it was in high demand. So the auditions were intense and, had to go through a lot of rounds to get into it. But yeah, so I suppose the main difference is that um, Australia just has a lot more opportunity. And I do think as well, the opportunity in Australia is better. They're more willing to take on fresh faces, and there's so much casting going on everywhere in Australia. Like particularly as you said, Sydney and the Gold Coast and Brisbane area. That's where all the casting happens. Um, and I just think there's no shortage of opportunity here, which is not the case in Ireland. In regards to education for acting and theatre and actual casting opportunities as well.
Oh, I see. I see. But isn't the Irish
Mm.
film and TV actually connected to the English one, or it's not the same, is
Yeah,
it? Like
no, I mean it is in the sense that, and this is another thing because Ireland is so small and we still don't really have the resources. Like a lot of casting for Irish TV and film is done in London. Um, and like UK actors then end up being cast in Irish roles because Ireland just doesn't have the resources and the big expensive studio. We don't have the finances for it or the sponsorship backing the money in theater or TV and film. It's just not there at the moment, I think, as much as it is here.
I
Like
think it's in its
Irish people
adolescence,
are,
yeah, adolescent years, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like Irish people are fighting for funding for the arts. Like there's all these, marches and events coming to try like raise funds for the arts, but Ireland hasn't quite caught up with it being as important as it is. Like, it's not, you can't even do acting or drama as a subject in school, whereas a lot of countries have drama as like, your final year subject.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, even back then, because
Mm.
even Nick, the owner of this office, like, he told me was it back in his high school years in the 70s, he said that drama subject didn't actually exist back then. Yeah. But, for me growing up
Mhm.
here like, migrating here in the early 90s in 1992 and graduated in 2002. I remember like in my late senior years, from year seven, first year of high school here was 1997 for me. And yeah, drama was already, a popular thing. And I chose that in my as one
Yeah.
of my HSC subjects to graduate in. Yeah, and back then, of
Hmm.
course, I just had that ambition, and I kept it as a secret. And I didn't tell because where I come from in Parramatta, like there's a lot of tall poppy syndrome. There wasn't a lot much ambitious vibes, and there's a lot of I don't know, just in some parts. I'm not saying every part, but some parts there was just a lower class area, and we live near the lower class area where the housing commissions were and all that stuff. So that's why I didn't bother talking about it to a lot of people back then, and it's
Hmm.
just an ambition. But then I thought that was enough of a formal education, but to be an actor. But when I started pursuing it at around 2007, properly and seriously, I was surprised that nobody would take me on board because I didn't have any proper
Hmm.
experience. I said, oh, look, I mean, I've done drama at school. It's not enough. So we have to do acting courses. I did my acting courses in Screenwise, in Talent Company, Ruby Productions, and even right now doing a lot of stuff with Sydney Actors Association. You know what I mean? Like obviously the sponsor of this podcast. Yeah. So it's just like you have to just keep evolving. So it's just evolving
Hmm.
through marketability and your performance. Yeah. So, but at the same time, going back to that um, topic that I just asked you, um, I mean, UK. What I appreciate about the UK talent pool, or just like the marketing thing, is that they focus more on the talent more than the actual looks. But if you take a look at like, especially like Hollywood over the years, is more about the good looks first, and then all of a sudden the talent. But from what I've seen in the UK stuff, I'm not saying every one of them, but a lot of them look like average, everyday people, but they're good
Hmm.
actors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there are
Hmm.
a lot of beautiful people in the UK. I mean, I've never been there, but I've met a lot of beautiful people from the UK in this country, even watching them in films, right? But it's just, but it's amazing how they put passion, like the talent first before. That's their market and that's their talent pool. Yeah, and but it is what it is. Just like Love Actually. I mean, um, not everyone in that film was good looking, were they?
No, but
From
like
what I can
I
remember.
think yeah, their beauty comes from their charm and their character and charisma. It's like the film is so beautiful because there's so much happening, and once again it's just that relatability factor. Like what you said, yeah, they're not all models, but they're all relatable, and that's why everybody loves that movie because we all see a bit of ourselves in in characters, which is what I think makes a great movie as well.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? Because my current acting coach, Sam Haft, of course, he's the guy who runs Sydney Actors Association, right? We were just talking about that in the previous episode we were recording here. But
Mhm.
he says people come to watch movies or go to the cinemas to see themselves, not us as a performance. How can they relate? If they can't relate to it, and how can they enjoy it? And how can they get blown away? And that's just as simple as that, because like what you said, like, with
Exactly.
Love Actually, being relatable for me, it's just like I remember that little boy who chased after that American girl in the airport. When I was a teenager, like I had a crush on a girl. I'm not going to name her name, but she was a girl from church. When I used to go to church, yeah, and I made sure I said hello to her every single time. And even like, one time she just gave me that hug. She didn't kiss me in the cheeks, but she gave me, oh, thank you so much for saying hello to me all the time. And then when I walked away, I was like, I felt like I scored. I felt like I
Yeah.
proposed and she said, I do. So, I mean, she said
Yeah.
yes. I was just 16 back then. It was just like, oh my gosh. It's just like, and my brother, what are you so happy about? Nothing.
Yeah.
and, 'cause I didn't want to talk to my brothers back then about my crushes because they'll make fun of me. But it's just, I was just happy, like after the church service, and then I was just in a good mood. So I can relate to that. I'm pretty sure you can relate to one of the characters there. Maybe I'm assuming one of the lady characters. Am I correct? Which one?
Oh, um, I'm
Kira
trying to think
Knightley.
about all the characters. Oh God, no. I wish. No, definitely not. Um, uh, I feel like I more relate to like the Colin Firth character, ironically, in that like it's just like that kind of awkward, clumsy, but like everyday kind of characters. You know what I mean? Just trying to get stuff done. I don't know. I feel like
Yeah.
he makes me laugh in it because even though he is male, I relate to him in the sense that like everything, you know, bad things seem to happen, but you just get on with it, and it's kind of funny to watch.
Yeah, I think, come to think of it now, I think I like that. Aside from that little boy, just chasing after that American girl, I kind of actually like
Mm.
that scene better at the end where he's actually proposing to the Portuguese girl in Portugal, right? And
Mm. Yeah,
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 so it's just like, and there's a bit of comedy in that involved. Like, the sisters going, it's like, hey, just go with him to England, and afterwards you could just marry Prince William. So Prince William, and then just that bit of just say yes, you skinny moron. Like that's what she was saying in
yeah,
Portuguese. Yeah, so I think there's
exactly.
and yeah, so there's a bit of comedy into that. But when she said yes, that when the crowd erupted, you just like that was the best feeling in the whole movie. It's like she said
Yeah,
yes to when he proposed, "Will you marry me?" And then the dad was just like, "They go, what did you say?" Because we didn't understand. Because remember, they don't speak English. So and then when she said yes in Portuguese, and the whole restaurant erupted. You know what I mean? And it's just like watching that movie. You have a big smile on your face. You're like,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And like the funniest part of that whole scene, I think, is like him trying to speak in Portuguese and saying like everything wrong, but it's just like that's the romance in it. And once again, it's the relatability factor. Like if any one of us fell in love with someone who didn't speak our own language and we tried to learn a bit of the language to make a romantic gesture, we would all end up getting a lot of it wrong. But it's the thought that counts, you know? And I think
Yeah,
like
yeah.
another really relatable character in Love Actually is, Natalie, she who the prime minister falls in love
Oh
with,
yes,
his
yeah.
assistant or his whatever, because she's just like an everyday average Joe, as you'd say, like, um, but it's just very relatable. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I forgot about that because, like, until that airport scene, I love the
Mhm.
prime minister's, like, Hugh Grant's actual love story, right? Because he's a busy bachelor and he doesn't, he's confident with everybody else, but when he meets a girl that he's genuinely attracted to, and feels like he has a deeper connection with, then I can relate to that as a guy as well. It's just like just similar to that girl who I used to chase after in church. Just like I'll be like, hey, how's your day? And he's like, oh, I'm good. How's yours? Yeah, pretty good. And then part of me nearly wanted to say this. It's like, it's good now that I've seen you. It's good to say hello to you. But I didn't want to get
Yeah.
rejected, right? Yeah. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's just like I can relate to that in the sense that I know what it feels like just being in the same room that you're romantically interested in. In my head back then, she was already my wife, but then it's far from reality. But it's just like, but part of me sometimes like I can just relate to that. Like when all of a sudden I didn't see her around anymore because she I didn't even know that she moved interstate. I just felt like it was empty. It took me a little while to get over that. So when she was no longer working in that prime minister's office, I can relate to that. Like, oh man, I got to go chase
and
after him.
that's cool.
I was 16. I didn't know
that's the thing about the movie.
Yeah, I was 16. I didn't know how to. How am I going to chase her over? I can't ask my mum and dad. Can you give me $500, $600 so I can go to Queensland? No, I didn't want to ask him for that. But time goes on. I'm sure she's happily married now. Yeah. But all the best to her.
Maybe you should maybe you should name and shame her to see where she's at now.
No, I'd rather not, because she was always nice, because in some parts of me, I was the one who's a wuss. Like, I didn't have the guts to ask her out or anything like that. Because at that age, I was afraid of rejection. You know what I mean? So, and that's my only regret. I didn't ask her out, but I don't regret it anymore. But for a few years after that, damn it, what if I asked her out? Or what if, all this what if, right? But I've accepted it. This is a long time ago. So, but, anyway,
too short for what if,
Yeah, exactly. So the last question here, Lucy, is what is your dream role in film and or theatre, or just one of them?
Well, I mean, before I had a vocal injury singing wise, my dream role was always, I don't know if you're familiar with The Sound of Music. I really enjoy the older musicals. I always wanted to play Maria in The Sound of Music because it's just my favorite movie and it's such a beautiful role. But I mean, now it's hard. It's hard to say what my dream role would be in TV and film because I suppose I don't, TV and film actors don't want to repeat the same role. They want to originate a new role, if that makes sense. The theater is all about, playing a role that's written for you, but TV and film, you're kind of a new movie, you're creating a new character. So I suppose my dream role, I don't know what it is yet for TV and film, but hopefully something along the comedy line. What about yourself? Bond?
Well,
is it James Bond?
Yes, you read my mind. Yes. Growing up, it wasn't, because growing up was more like I want to play Bruce Lee one day, a similar role to Bruce Lee. But nowadays, in the past 5 or 6 years, yes, because like I said, I told you the other day, in real life, I'm learning how to develop my James Bond character. Even though he's a fictional guy, I'm not a spy. I'm not going in one of those high risk missions or anything like that. But in terms of being stoic and keeping my emotions under control, come a long way, but I've still got some flaws that I need to go and mold, when it comes to my emotional maturity. But, like I said, I've come a long way, but still got to keep working. It's always going to be a work in progress. But your dream role in theatre, because, of course, it makes sense that you know what your dream role is in theatre. Dorothy, is it Dorothy or from Sound of Music?
Maria.
Okay, Maria. Dorothy was from Wizard of Oz. I got that mixed up. So you know what your dream role is. Look for something that's gonna maybe start your own local theatre thing where you get to play that character or get to raise some funds. That's just some idea for you, yeah. But with me playing Bond, that's why I just decided to play. I did a couple of short films. There's going to be a third one at the end of the year where there's going to be a fight scene. It was the guy who's going to play Alec Trevelyan was the previous guest, so he's been a guest in this before, but we talked today wasn't about his story, it's just talking about our favorite top 5 movies of all time. But whether I get to play the real Bond or not, well, time will tell. But it's just a great honor that I got to play him in that passion project. But if I don't get to play the role of Bond, there's other roles out there that I can play, even the T-1000 in Terminator Part 2, the bad Terminator, so So
I think it's as an actor, it's good to, find your own James Bond role, it's it may not be James Bond, but find something that's going to make you happy and something similar,
similar.
That you can make your own.
Yeah, because Tom Cruise said that in one of his interviews that, the reason why he started the Mission Impossible franchise is because him being an American, the James Bond role won't suit him. So he said, all right, cool. And the next best thing, he did his own American version, which is Ethan Hunt. And if you take a look at that, I wouldn't say that it's exactly the same as James Bond. It's very similar to James Bond. Low key,
Yeah.
like, works for a secret service of some sort, like intelligence, so, and that's why, I think, I could be wrong, but an American wouldn't suit to play the James Bond because it's overall a different culture. You know what I mean? Because I've experienced the best of both worlds. I've only been to the US, but the American kind of mentality and culture doesn't suit that role. But I could be wrong. Okay, if I'm wrong, shame on me. But if I'm right, don't be surprised. But the best is yet to come for both of us as individuals. So So do you have 30 seconds? Any 30-second gestures to encourage our fellow actors who's actually going through discouragement right now? Not me, but people who need to watch this. So
Yeah. No, I mean, I suppose it's just kind of a recap of what I said earlier, as in like, you know, do the audition, take every role that feels right for you, and don't get discouraged if you don't get that dream part, because there's always going to be something lying ahead that's right for you. So just keep going and keep doing what you love. And I think as long as you're, you know, following your passion, you can never really go wrong, no matter what role you play, big or small. Just enjoy the process, I suppose. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. The best is only yet to come if you believe it. Yeah. But thank you for tuning in. Appreciate your time, Lucy. And if you haven't done so yet, everybody, please press the like and subscribe buttons. If you're watching this on YouTube, that's greatly appreciated, not only for me, but for Lucy. It's because of stories like hers that this channel exists, because it's to help share people, other actors' stories just like hers. And if you support it, please do what I just said. Yeah. No threats there, but I appreciate that. Yeah. Until the next episode, thank you for tuning in, everybody. Have a good rest of the day. God bless.